We wanted to share about this course, share about what Kristina's up to, and also like her deep legacy within the mythological contributions within our community. And this course is going to be really, I mean, it's a beautiful extension of what we've already created together. We actually produced a course together in 2021 called The Stillness of Life. And your example painting throughout that whole one was a unicorn, My Little Pony, kind of, wasn't it?
Yep.
And then you've also taught a lecture with ViTra Academy on mythology, as well as last fall taught a 1 day workshop on mythology and monsters, you know? And so now we're really like just going even deeper into visionary beast making with you through the lens of the Mische Technique.
Yes.
And so I wanted to just chat with you about the course and like what your inspiration for the course was. I've admired your work for a long time anyways. And in the last years, I've come to admire it even more. And I'm constantly blown away by your dedication to the technique, to deepening your realism as well as your fantastic realism, and the really beautiful, I mean, these are deep paintings that you've been creating. And, I would love to just hear from you about, what your inspiration is as a painter and then how that, comes into the creation of this course.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No, this has been so much fun. And I love this as kind of like the next step, into like the full suite, if you will, And yeah, so I love I love painting animals and I love painting people. And I think but I think um my dad used to tell me, bedtime stories that were myths rather than just kind of regular made up stories. So I've just always had kind of this very deep undercurrent of the mythological, and um, anytime anything is kind of, hard or difficult or turbulent or something, I've always found myself turning to myth as kind of a source, not only of just inspiration, but like a wellspring of ideas on how to just cope, and um so just to kind of, and when the vision train started, I was really just called to do a weekly, which is kind of crazy. I think about it now, a weekly offering of mythology cafe, and it was just kind of we'd either listen to a podcast or every once in a while I do a presentation, but it just um it was the thing that really needed to come through. And my little person is walking around. Okay. And I think like artistically it's always been in the undercurrent, like no matter what I did, like fantastical imagery, visionary imagery, all of that. That's always been what my art has been about. Even from the first time I could like hold a pencil as a little kid, I would just draw these crazy, fantastical things all the time. And it's nice to always feel true to that. So, but as far as, I think the thing that I've been really like, you always need a thing, right? Like, at least for me, it's like I always need like a thing to kind of keep me going and something to keep inspiring me. And the thing that's been really inspiring me for the last many years has been photorealism
Yeah,
and just
super
realism in
admirable.
general,
Mhm.
and it's just such a fun it's a gift that keeps on giving on some level. And because you can never I don't know, it's one of those things where I just don't think you can ever be perfect at it. Like there's ways of doing it, but there's always other ways of doing it, and so there's infinite possibility on how to kind of like get something that's like right there.
Yeah.
And so that mixed with kind of all of the myth and the story and the fantasy and the visionary has just been, the wellspring I keep coming back to over and over again.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you also are a wisdom holder, of the lineage of the Mische Technique, right? And so then like coming to this work through that part of your history, I mean, like, I think, and you also convey it in also, your own way. You have your own interpretation of it that works for you, and you've been really honing this in so exquisitely in your work, and so I wanted to, could you share a little bit with us about what your background is in regards to like how did you discover the Mische Technique, and what is it that like is the reason why you bring the Mische Technique to the table?
Yeah. So kind of through a funny series of events. So I learned the technique from Bridget Marlin, and who now, is just kind of a matriarch of the visionary, crew, world really. And, but at the time I had no idea, this was like, I want to say 2006, 5, 6, something like that. And I just found her work, and I moved back home with my parents after college, and my mom was like, you should send her a message to see if she'll teach you. And I was like, okay, because the internet back then, you could just kind of like get in touch with anybody, and it was great. And so she's like, yeah, come to England and stay with me, and I'll teach you the technique. I'm like, okay, and so that was the first of several times I ended up doing that. And so she learned the technique from Ernst Fuchs, but she learned it kind of very I was in the 70s, right? And so kind of at a very particular time when Ernst Fuchs just was teaching, and he taught her the technique, and she never strayed from doing it this one way. And so that is what she teaches. That is how she teaches the technique. And so I learned this very particular way of doing it. And I had no, again, it's like I kind of just had no idea. I was doing my own thing. And this whole visionary art world was kind of just very new. And, in the way we think of it now, it was just kind of these like little flourishings here and there. And I, hadn't strayed either from this. I experimented some, but I always came back to it. So what am I talking about? Like, so Bridget paints in a very there's 3 layers of underpainting. You start with a red layer, then you do the white, you do a yellow glaze over top of that, you do the white again, then you do a blue glaze over top of that, and then you do the white, and then you do color glazing over top of that. So that is how she does every single painting. The color, she has kind of her favorites, but the colors can kind of mold, the blue especially can kind of change hue a little bit, but she has a very, as she says, kind of, the master taught her to do it this way. She dares not stray from it. Hilariously, though, Fuchs himself strayed and taught a variety of different ways to do the Mische technique. And so that's what's so cool is Amanda teaches, kind of, an upstream from that lineage herself. And so her way of doing the Mische technique, we come from a similar source, but because Fuchs was such a, auteur in that kind of way, and he was able to just, reinvent and kept reinventing and kept innovating himself, these kind of various like branches from this tree developed, which is kind of really crazy. And so, for whatever reason, for me, that the 3 colors just kind of scratches my itch. There's something about it every single time that it never gets old. And when I don't do it, because sometimes I'll do other things too. When I don't do it, I miss it, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of what I've ended up. Wanting to transmit, wanting to teach myself, because there is just something so glorious about each of those color glazes on top. And then when you do when you go into the final color layers to the richness of those, the shadows and the grays and everything kind of comes through. So it is, every painting is an adventure, and the journey to getting there just keeps being delightful. So, I think as long as it keeps being delightful, I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, while I had Bridget's website up, I thought it'd be cool to even just look at this
Yeah.
demo. The Mische Technique. I mean, we've all looked at this a gazillion times. I mean, I have anyways, and I think it's such a beautiful. I mean, and as just because it was handy and it was such a great visual for somewhat like the journey that you're going to take the students on. This course is going to be over it's really over the course of about 3 weeks, but there's 2 Saturday sessions and then 2 Wednesday sessions that are group reviews. And so in those 2 sessions, you're going to go through basically this whole step, right? And this is the building up of the drawing, inking it in, creating the imprimatura, which is often done with a earth red, but not necessarily. Actually painting up the first underpainting in white, the yellow glaze, right? The second underpainting, and the blue glaze, right? And that will be all within that first day. So you'll kind of end here around.
So we will not be putting it on with our hands. That's the.
We will not be putting it on with our hands. Not recommended, but yes.
I did learn it that way.
This is absolutely is a legendary photo, though. I mean, it really is for so many reasons. But and then you'll have an opportunity to go through these steps on your own and submit your work, whatever stage you are in the process. Like, you don't have to have gotten all the way to the blue glaze by the time that we have the submission for group reviews for that next week. You can be at whatever stage in the process that you are on and submit your work there and receive feedback from Krisztina about your work, and next steps, or maybe some adjustments that you could make. And then in the next Saturday, we're going to really start going into color and building up the realistic colors in the painting, right?
Yeah, and I feel like, with, at least it always feels like this to me, that there isn't ever enough time for the finishing of the painting. Like you get going in the underpainting, and then you're like, okay, and now do the color, and then it's, but the color glazing at the end is just so important. So I'm gonna try my very best to spend as much time as possible on that as well, just to kind of really get into it. So I love painting alla prima also, and it's something that I've, dedicated myself to getting better at too, but just as something to inform kind of how I do most of my work. So what I've started doing over the last couple years is almost an alla prima with glazes as I'm finishing the painting. So it's just, it's not how I used to work. I used to do kind of more how Bridget shows in the step-by-step, which was very layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And that is amazing. And to some extent, it's a little, you still got to do a little bit of both, but there's something about, not only, I hate to say that, not only does it kind of speed up the process, but there's something really luscious about being able to paint in such a way and still have it be completely transparent.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, and because I love a good alla prima painting. But I'm, for whatever reason, like paint phobic. Like a lot of paint like freaks me out. So, to me, it's just like, oh, tiny brushes and like glazes, and I'll paint the color in. So it's, it's a fun way of working, and it also can inform other ways of doing things too. So how we're going to do kind of the colors, and it'll be a fun exploration because it'll be a little different, especially than kind of a lot of other ways of working.
We'll go from glazing to glazily painting. We like to call it glazily painting,
I love it.
I remember
Yeah.
when I first started to work in the Mische Technique, for me, it was in 2016, well, 2015, but then I really went to a longer format study with Olori and David. And that I had a big sign on my easel that was literally like, less paint, less is more. Because, I came to the table really like using, I used a lot more paint than I needed to. And I started to realize that when I used the more paint that I used, I lost that luminosity and like the gorgeous, that je ne sais quoi of like those transparencies that, is really the only way you can get it. It's through like very thin applications of the paint. And I really wanted to see if I could go there, and so like I literally like I looked at it for like 4 months straight, less paint, less is more, and I'm so glad, because I'm also so in love with this technique, and I think that you do such a gorgeous job of being true to, what you learned, and also, really evolving that and adapting it to, your lifestyle, and I mean, we all, and plus I think this too, in that process, especially when it's like, drawn out and over like, months and months of time, there is a beautiful sacred ritual act in that as well, but that I've also experienced and known other artists to then like that time period gets you in your head, and then you become kind of afraid of the paint, so I really love the idea of, like making this accessible and digestible and at a quicker format. Amanda also does such a beautiful job of that. Yeah, but it is. I mean, I literally the first Mische Technique paintings that I did were, literally like we worked on them for 3 months.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And I'm so glad that I did that too. And I mean, not that we don't all have paintings that we've been working on for long periods of time, but it was like, that was all I worked on, were like these 2 paintings for 3 months, and that was amazing. And like so helpful for me to understand the nuances that can be created when you're really delicately applying even the whites in the underpainting in between each layer, and this beautiful like dance that we get to do between building up the skeletal structure of the painting in white, glazing with a transparent application of color, and then building up beyond what was already there before, refining it into greater, greater detail. And then another layer of glaze, and then just, you literally building up the mass. It's like a relief carving, it's like, you do a relief painting. There's these beautiful, the skeleton of the painting continues to be developed. And when you apply the glazes in between transparently, you get the luminosity and the bouncing around of all those colors. And it's so easy to fall in love with when you see it with your eyes on your canvas in front of you,
Yeah, I often talk about it. It's very sculptural. You really are building something up. And if you think of it 3-dimensionally, it actually makes a lot more sense than if you think of it only as 2D. So and or like a layer cake, you gotta add the different pieces of the layer cake as you're building it up. And so I think it's all about that process. And while what we're going to do is a much shortened version of it. I think and we're the subject, we'll get to the subject matter, I know, but even so, we're allowing a bit of time kind of between the first class and kind of the last review, just to kind of keep working on it. Like I always think that the Mische technique is a form of time revolution. Everything today is so hurried, is so rushed, and I think especially because of Instagram, we always think that paintings should take, hours and days at the top, at the most, but really, like that's an illusion. And even the paintings that seem like people do like, so quickly, oftentimes take a lot longer than is visible, just from the media, right? But so I think of the Mische technique, I think of painting in this way, especially, oil painting, as, you are defiantly standing against the media that makes you hurry. It is an essential way to slow down, stop rushing, take stock on what's going on, and really sink into a process that changes the rhythm. It slows your heart rate. It calms you down. So that's how I like to think about it. So even though this is like a quote unquote it is a speedy version for sure, but I always think that by its very nature, Alicia, as you said, like there's something about really just getting into the details that changes how we look at things.
Right.
And there's
Yeah,
kind of a lovely like image, detail image of one of my pieces.
Yeah, I thought I'd look on your website since we had it up on Bridget's. I thought I'd pull this up from your website as well and just show, sort of your step by step as well. And the Mische technique's an ever evolving adaptation of a Renaissance master's painting technique, reimagined by contemporary master Ernst Fuchs. I learned the Mische technique from Bridget Marlin, one of his earliest students. So I mean, we're really also like paying homage to lineage here, that goes all the way back to the Renaissance, and we really are, we have a lot of, we're standing on the shoulders of people that have come for hundreds of years before us that have been exploring this, and one of the most exciting things I feel like about being an artist in the world today is that we have the access to resources and the ability to create whatever we want. And nobody can, there's no other governing body, above us right now where we live in the world today. I mean, in the United States, we can paint whatever we want for the most part, and I know that that's not the way that it is in most places in the world, but most painters, in all places of the world, but most painters from, the past that have been able to, have create masterpieces, they were sponsored by, religious establishments or governmental establishments. And really right now we can paint whatever visions that we're inspired by. And this technique does such an incredible job of expressing, these cosmic visions that, we've maybe experienced in dreams or in meditative states, or, there's so many ways that, the visions come to us, but it allows you to really, build it up, build the skeleton of it up, as you get to these incredibly exquisite, transparent jewel-like, luminosities. It gives you the opportunity each time to go back to the whites and refine, and then build it up into another lens of color, that is filling out the spectrum a little bit more, and then coming back to the whites again. And it's this dance of, like the devotion to the sculptural aspects as well as the full color spectrum of the image. And it's so easy to fall in love with. And, I'm super excited to see the work that is, that people create in this class with you. And I wonder too, like as far as, the lectures are concerned, you're going to be obviously lecturing on technique, but will you also be sharing about mythology in the lectures?
Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely do a bit of both. So as far as, the subject matter goes, visionary beasts, that's pretty broad, but so I'm going to be painting as the demo a griffin. And I think what we're going to kind of look at is, instead of just, much like kind of the first class we did a couple years ago, which was really just how to make a still life cool, because I personally despise still lifes. But if you use really cool subject matter, then it's a fun process. It's not just a vase, right? Like, so I did a My Little Pony with a turkey foot holding a crystal. So, so in much the same way, I encourage everybody, come with an idea, because the first class you'll just watch, right? And then we'll have some time to actually do the painting. I'm going to talk a lot about how to start the painting, how to get your references, because instead of just doing it as a totally visionary process, which I would consider being, something that is more of your imagination, 100%, meaning you are not using references. We are going to be using, and I encourage you to use references. So for every visionary creature, there is something in the real world that is similar, hands down, right? Like, even if you're painting aliens, well, especially if you're painting aliens, then there's all sorts of types of, like, whether it's a mantis or birds or like whatever, right? If your dragons can be anything, anything from a mouse to a dog to a horse, so there's all sorts of like actual critters that are around us all the time that can be a source somehow for your visionary beast. And so if you have an idea in mind of what you would like to do, I encourage you, and we'll talk through this quite a bit in the class, I encourage you to kind of think of what what real being is, a good kind of place to start with. Because if you've got that just a touch of realism in your visionary work, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? I mean, there's definitely, like, this is not disparaging purely imaginative work at all. It has nothing to do with that. This is just, if this is the type of work you want to do, this is the type of painting you want to do for your subject matter, I would recommend doing it this way rather than without references. That little touch of realism just goes a long way, especially when you're thinking of something that's in 3D. Like, we're still flattening it into a 2D surface, but if it's in space, it's just nice to have something that reflects that. And so even when you're looking at a reference, you're going to translate that into your own piece. It's just going to add something to it that otherwise you might miss if you're just doing it from your mind's eye. So we're going to talk quite a bit about that. And so get your creature in your mind, and we're going to go through on how to start a painting from, references to drawing to inking, and then all the way through to the last white layer on the blue glaze. So that's Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. And then that'll be happening this upcoming Saturday. The course starts this upcoming Saturday on October 14th, and then runs through November 1st is when the second group review will be. I'm going to go ahead and just pop up the webpage for the course. Visionary art, the art of visions, can be traced back to some of the first mark making found in caves throughout the world. It's an essential part of our nature to depict our inner realms and experiences so that others can both share in our interdimensional space as well as follow us there. But what are the creatures that inhabit this space? From unicorns, dragons, harpies, and sea monsters to yet unnamed chimera, mythical creatures live in the wilderness of experience and the wilds of our psyches. I love it. The materials here, our schedule for when this is going to be happening. Every session begins at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, which is 6 p.m. Central European. Unfortunately, it's at 3 a.m. for folks in Australia. I'm so sorry for that, but we record all sessions and make those recordings available within 24 hours of the class wrapping up that day. So each session will be posted in your library, usually within the next hour or so, but sometimes it takes a little longer. And so I always say at least within 24 hours, you'll have your recordings available to you. The course, there's an option for you to buy a single discounted $277 registration, or you can pay as you go and over the course of 3 months, pay $100 a month. So you could take the class with us and if just start with $100 at this point, and then be paying the rest of it off over the rest of the year. So you can find all of this information here at our website, ViTra.Academy, www.vitra.academy, and Visionary Beasts will be found on the homepage as well to get you here to this one. But the link is vitra.academy/visionary-beast. Yeah, I am super looking forward to this. Obviously, I know it's going to be amazing because I've worked with you already. One of the benefits that I wanted to mention too, that we talked about this morning, that's not on this webpage yet, is that we're going to include the lecture that you gave last spring called what was that one called? That lecture. Do you remember? It was a mythology lecture, but
shoot, I think was it on I think it was also on monsters. I think both. It was the lecture. Yeah, the lecture was like mythology and monsters, or like monsters in the visionary or something. Mythology and the visionary was the lecture, and then the little workshop was last fall, which was just kind of a deep dive into mythological monsters. And then we, as field scientists, created our own monster and took notes and had our sketchbook. It was a fun sketchbooking kind of imaginative thing. So this again is kind of like the next step, if you will. So you can 100% choose, as I am, a very kind of standard but very fun mythological creature as a griffin. Or, you can 100%, if you have a creature that, as it says in the description, lives in the recesses of your psyche that needs to get painted, by all means. Yeah. We're here for that too. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to also include the Living Mythology, a lifelong practice. That's what it was called.
There it is.
Living Mythology. It says the world is a story, and how we make meaning of those stories defines us as individuals. As artists, we make those stories visual for ourselves and others to see, to process and integrate. When we have developed a vocabulary of story, we both consciously and intuitively work with symbols that make sense of our world, our circumstances, and what is happening in our lives and the culture around us. The word we use for this now is mythology, but myth isn't a thing of the past. It's a living, breathing process that both maintains essential truths and continually evolves in relevancy. So we're going to include that lecture in the supplemental material for this course, as well as mythology and monsters, which I think is an awesome way to dip your toes into what you may even paint in this course. So those will be in the supplemental material when you first register for the course that you can go ahead and dive into immediately. And then start class on Saturday. So you could listen to the Living Mythology lecture and take the little it's probably like a 4-hour workshop, I think, on the mythology and monsters, and do you're going out and into a world and seeing what kind of monster presents itself to you, and maybe that's the monster that you paint in the workshop, maybe, maybe it isn't. But those were two offerings that you gave last year that we're going to also put into this. So it'll be like a whole Krisztina Lazar package that we'll be building. So I'm super excited about that too. And to just like be able to make that more accessible to folks that maybe didn't get to experience that last year, and see how that all then begins to tell the story of what they may be bringing to want to paint. And I can't wait to see the artwork that's made. That's always the most exciting thing for me too. And I think that the group reviews are such a beautiful way for people to be able to touch in with you one-on-one. You'll submit your artwork into a form, and then we'll have a session on Wednesday that of course will be recorded. So in case you're not able to make it live, you can watch it. But if you can make it live, that's ideal, because then you actually get the opportunity to touch in directly with Krisztina and talk about your work with her one-on-one, which is super valuable. And then we'll come back the next Saturday and do the second day, focusing mostly on color and finishing the painting out. And then you have a full 10 days. So you don't have to be already to, the end of the blue glaze by the time that the Saturday's class happens. There's going to be a whole another 10 days. It's not the next Wednesday, it's the Wednesday after that on November 1st that will then meet for the final group review. Submissions will be due probably on Tuesday morning of that week. So just the day before. So you'll have quite a bit of time to be able to, continue to watch the things. I definitely recommend you doing that too, because when you come live, just come live and experience it. Don't try to paint alongside it. Really just come, learn, take notes, and then when you have, when you go into your studio time, you can take those recordings and be like, you know what, there was this thing that she was talking about. I think I'm going to hone in on that section, and you can watch it, and you can watch it a couple times, speed it up, slow it down, and I think that that's such a cool aspect of of learning online too. Is like you can come live to the classes and obviously ask questions there, engage in the chat, ask questions to Krisztina in the live class, but then you can go back and rewatch it. We make that available to you immediately so that you can, be able to deepen that understanding, because we understand it more the more we see it and the more we hear it and see more examples of it too. That's one of the cool things about the masterclass reviews that we're doing with Amanda Sage this fall. She's reviewing 8 students' work in one session and doing these digital mock-ups, and you get to see you learn so much from more examples that you watch, So coming to those group reviews and making sure you watch those recordings also, I highly recommend it for this course as well. And that's one of the big benefits, I think, of this course, especially, with how much it can cost to have one-on-one mentorship with people. I think that that's one of the greatest values that these courses that we've put together for this fall offer. So thank you so much, Krisztina. I'm so excited. I always love to work with you. You are brilliant. You bring so much to the table, and your work is inspiring, but then to hear you speak about your work and the way that you interpret the technique too is incredibly inspiring. And I wonder if there is anybody here that's on the call that might have any questions before we wrap up today. Or I can check on the live streams as well. Does anybody have any questions before we wrap up with Krisztina, or anything that you would like to, any testimonies? Anybody here that took a class with Krisztina in the past?
I am looking forward to this so much. I'm so excited. This is what I asked for my birthday, actually, was to take this class. I'm really excited to explore this method of Mische Technique again. I did take a class with Amanda, and I'm trying to hash it out and trying to figure out how it works with my style. So to do it again in the classical way that Krisztina teaches is exciting. So I think I'm going to be able to implement some things, and I really love the style, and anything mythology with Krisztina is excellent. So
thank you.
I agree. And we'll definitely be working in acrylics at the start of the painting. And then with the option for you to evolve into oils. So you can work the whole thing in acrylic if you like, but Krisztina will be demoing transitioning into oils. So that's another beautiful opportunity here too, is to kind of like see these two worlds, right? Like the, you know, building up some in acrylic and then finishing in oils will be a really cool way to learn the Mische technique. I know Amanda does teach this often, but often in the educational setting, we stick with acrylics just because of speed and different, you know, everybody's different, you know, studio, you know, ventilation and everything like that. So to have the option to then bridge into oils as well, which again isn't necessary. You know, you could stay in acrylics, absolutely, because there's nothing moving forward that would be any different from the way that you were already building it up. But you know, I think that the juicy and the luminosity of the oils to finish the painting up is really nice too. So we kind of get to have a little bit of the best of both worlds there. So awesome. Well, Krisztina, looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. And to any of you out there that may have any questions, you can email us at info@vitra.academy. And hope to see you on Saturday.
Excited. Thank you so much. This will be so much fun.
Yeah. Choo choo. Oop. Actually.